August 2014, a brand new indie horror game hits the internet and takes it by storm. What could this game be? And why does everybody want their hands on it? Welcome to today's video, where we're discovering why Five Nights at Freddy's is so popular. That's the whole premise of the video. I genuinely don't know how long this episode's gonna be, or this video's gonna be, but that's what we're doing today. To understand why this game is so popular, we need a basic rundown of the plot. Basically, Five Nights at Freddy's tells the story of a child serial killer named William Afton and his very interesting family. Now, William Afton owned a pizzeria called Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. Now, as many of us know, William Afton used this pizzeria. I don't know how many there was. I genuinely don't know. He used this restaurant as a front for his criminal activity. And of course, it's the 1980s, so he doesn't get caught. Now, this is a very basic plot summary, so you get the point. Now, if you grew up with MatPat on game theory, like I did, then you know the hurdles this man jumped through to try to figure out this plot back in 2014, 2015, and 2016. If you're familiar with this, then you're also familiar with the hurdles Scott Cawthon jumped through to not have anybody figure out the plot. This man apparently did not want anybody to know the plot of these video games, and I don't understand why. I never will. Moving on. Now, I mentioned MatPat because MatPat put in a lot of effort to figuring out the plot of these video games that otherwise would have been indistinguishable. Because I don't understand how MatPat put the puzzle pieces together, but I don't think anybody could put them together the way he did. And I think that has done wonders for the community and for the popularity of this game series, because I know when I was a kid, I didn't really know anything about Five Nights at Freddy's until I came across a MatPat theory video about FNAF on a road trip on my tablet at like the age of 8, because I was maybe 9 on my phone. I'm one of the two, but I was definitely in the car. And I think that kind of set the record straight for just the entire lore that we understand nowadays for these video games, and its important nuance to know and understand. A large part of this game's success can be attributed to YouTubers like Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, Doco's Games, and 8-Bit Ryan. 8-Bit Ryan happens to be my favorite, which is why he's on this list. As well as YouTubers like Game Theory, Fusion Z Gamer, Razbowski, and more. Now, really the success can be originally credited to Yummy Mash, because Markiplier saw that Yummy Mash played the game, heard a good review, and decided he wanted to play the game for himself. Now, once someone hears someone say that a game is pretty good, they want to play it for themselves, because they saw the views and they wanted those views. So really, we have Yummy Mash to thank for this wonderful video game series. And this is a really interesting phenomenon that my mom doesn't directly have a name for, but I have a little quote from her for this phenomenon. It's the coolest, everybody's doing it. Which is less of a peer pressure thing and more of just an answer as to my cousin's why questions when we're doing something. But it also works in this instance because it appeared cool and other YouTubers wanted to do it. Back in 2014, all the way back in Markiplier's first FNAF video, he says, "This is totally different than any horror game I've ever played." That was huge for this game. Absolutely huge. Skyrocketed the game with that quote alone. I fear. And, you know, others hear this and want to experience the game for themselves and not basically through someone else's eyes. Part of what skyrocketed FNAF's popularity is how quickly Scott was able to produce another game. But my question is, what made these games intriguing enough for YouTubers to play them anyway? And my second question, what made them keep coming back? Now, the name for this video game and series is incredibly unique. And when you first look at it without any prior knowledge, many questions are raised. Who's Freddy? Why am I spending 5 nights here? Why is this bear so freaky looking? And the entire function of the game is incredibly unique as well. Prior to the game's release, no one had really made a game like this. It forces you in a confined space. You can't run. There's animatronics after you. You can't really stop them. All you can do is just close a door that drains your power. All you can do is watch where they're at and close a door in an attempt to protect yourself, and that doesn't always work. Because if the power runs out, you know, which is just incredibly horrific when you run out of power your first time ever playing this game on night 1, like Markiplier did. But there's also like a psychological aspect to it, other than just horror. For many adult players who grew up with 80s and 90s Chuck E. Cheese, FNAF invokes a sense of nostalgia. Back in the 80s and 90s, running around in a pizza place with little animatronic animals on the stage. I mean, not so little, but, you know, freaky looking animatronics on the stage that are supposed to look like animals. But they kind of just look horrific. There's also the story and the difficulty to the game that just keeps bringing people in. Like, there's mysteries to solve, and there's lore to find, and there's mini games, and then there's lore in the phone calls, and the game kind of rewards slacking off in some instances. Like when you sit there and click random tiles on the wall in FNAF 3 and it gives you a mini game. They're not so random, but it's essentially rewarding not being on task. Which is why I think so many people with ADHD and autism tend to like Five Nights at Freddy's so much. Because it just rewards goofing off sometimes. And that is our favorite activity. Anyway, plenty of hidden lore for people to find that people tend to really enjoy finding. Now, for some people, the games are easy. For others, they're difficult. But there's like one thing that remains the same throughout the game and throughout every game as the nights go on. The animatronics get more aggressive and get more difficult to deal with. Like, eventually, at like night 5 in FNAF 1, Freddy is just right next to your door. He's just there. Hi. Although it doesn't really make sense when you run out of power and he's suddenly on the other side. But I didn't make the game. So why do people keep coming back? The same reason SpongeBob is still brought up and watched. Nostalgia. Another reason is the mass amount of content that can be milked out of this video game series. Arguably, FNAF tries a little bit harder than SpongeBob, content and quality-wise. But that's a conversation for a different day. And I don't know if any of you have seen on YouTube in like early June, but there was like a surge of SpongeBob video essays. Which SpongeBob can also be milked to the bone for content. But at a certain point, there's nothing new you can squeeze out of that because there's a cohesive plot. But, you know, milk what you will. I guess SpongeBob's a cow. People are revisiting the topic because it's such a prominent part of so many people's childhoods.
Not mine, though. Not mine. My mommy didn't let me watch SpongeBob.
There's also been a flood of new stuff from theorists like dual process theory and GP's Horror Homestead. I apologize if I didn't pronounce either of those names right. But back to the mystery of FNAF. It can and has been scraped to the bone for lore and content. And there's still more to find. Every day, I fear. The story is constantly expanding with books, songs, games, and ultimately, the movie. And now, second one currently in production. There's so many variations of the same story that no one really knows what's true anymore. There's obviously theories, but most consider the games to be the true lore. Such as William Afton is Purple Guy, his son died, his daughter died, his oldest was a scapegoat. His son needs the happiest day so everyone can move on, his daughter becomes the baby animatronic, his oldest is turned into a living corpse. Henry Emily lures everyone to the original Fredbear location and kills everyone, but the story continues with William living in a hellscape created by Cassidy, and also somehow a digital version of William brainwashes a girl named Vanessa and now there's security breach. Weird shit. It's this absolutely insane story that keeps you wondering what's real and what's not. With questions like, why do these kids have to go through this? Why are these children stuffed in animatronic suits? Why is this man absolutely deranged? And why does this poor little child have to bear the anger of this grown man? So many questions about his family. It makes you question your own psyche, as well as just the psychological impact that everything has on these characters and the people who play it. Because when you really sit there and do a deep dive into the lore, it kind of makes you a little depressed for a minute. Which is, I don't think something that was intentional, but it very much did end up happening. However, because the expansive storyline, it opened the door for fan-made media, like games, animations, and songs. Even fanfic, but I don't want to address that. Some of this fan-made content became so popular that Scott made the FNAF verse, turning fanon into canon, and an alternative universe. Like Candies, and that's really the only one I can think of at the moment. But there's others. I just cannot think of them right now. The Joy of Creation is probably another one. The constant surge in creativity is attractive to fans and makes the fan base very lively. So in short, people keep coming back because there's constantly new information and ideas coming out surrounding the video game. And there's always, always, always going to be something new to be found. Because I don't think that this is ever going to stop anytime soon. Even though Scott isn't really a part of the games anymore, the people who now have the rights to make new games, I think they're going to continue. And regardless, for years to come, people are going to make FNAF fan games. When I was in the 4th grade, I wanted to make a FNAF fan game. I had a whole plot, character designs, everything figured out. I just needed to know how to make a video game, which I didn't know when I was, 8, 9 years old? But I do now. So I could entirely make a FNAF fan game if I wanted to. Probably not something I'm going to do, though. Anyways, remember to log out and take care of yourselves, and I'll see you ghouls in the next video.